Okay, so I want to talk today a little bit about a very sensitive topic for many of us, but a very needed topic to discuss. And that topic is racism and what it looks like today as opposed to any other day, or any other time in history. Um, and How does it make us feel as a country as a whole? Or depending on what group you belong to. So I want to just take a moment out to highlight it or discuss it since it's a very hot topic right now. But it doesn't mean that because it's a hot topic at the moment, it was never as serious as it appears to be. Frankly, I think we're able to document incidents of racism now more than ever before. And our voices are just getting a bit louder as well. And, especially because of the climate that we're in. So before I really delve in, and I'm really going to give a lot more of my personal take on it and what it really means to this country. And why are we still here talking about it? Why is it such a massive hurdle we have yet to been able to overcome or overtake? So first, let me give a little bit of foundation and go into what racism is, because we can say racism and many people might not really be clear on what racism is, or even the idea of race. I mean, very recently I was just questioning, like, who deemed us racist? Like, I mean, we're all created to be equal. We're all created in the image of God. And yeah, while we're gonna look different depending on the region that we're from, what's a race? Like, why, who determined that this person is that race or this race? So let me just get into a little bit of background. So this is not a history lesson. I just want to give a little bit more context and a bit more of a foundation for where I'm headed with this. So I researched and I came across a definition of racism, and this is the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition. It's a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capabilities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race, racial prejudice, or discrimination. And since we're talking about defining race, I dug a little deeper and I really wanted to know where it came from, how it all started. So as I went further to find out the information, I came across an explanation from Britannica.com, and I'm going to read that to you right now. So Britannica.com has the explanation of race as a categorizing term referring to human beings was first used in the English language in the late 16th century. Until the 18th century, it had a generalized meaning similar to other classifying terms such as type, sort, or kind. Occasional literature of Shakespeare's time referred to a race of saints or a race of bishops. By the 18th century, race was widely used for sorting and ranking the peoples in English colonies. Europeans who saw themselves as free people, Amerindians who had been conquered, and Africans who were being brought in as slave labor, and this usage continues to today. So it's basically about ranking, who's who's higher than the next. It's a hierarchy system pretty much, and it's just to basically say, well, we're better than you in this and that way. And it's just, it's like, how do you defend yourself against that when there's a majority of people really oppressing a minority group via racism? It's how do you rise above that? You kind of, I don't want to say you can't, but it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to combat on a day-to-day basis, because basically with race determining how valuable you are, how intelligent you are, how refined you are. It taints the way people see you, and it just goes on for generations after generations. And I wanted to bring in my experience of racism in this country, me being a black woman and a dark-skinned black woman, because a conversation for another time is the colorism aspect of race, and that damaging effect as well. But for now, we're just going to talk about between like white and black, or people of color, and how does that affect the way we move as a country, and how does it affect the individual groups. So, I mean, personally, as a black woman, like, I've never been able to forget in this country that I'm black. It's everywhere. When we say it's institutionalized, it's structural, it's because it's in the very framework of our society. So you can't go someplace and not really feel it. I mean, the only place I would truly say that I don't feel racist tension and pressure is in my house, is in my home, because there is no one oppressing me or abusing me or harassing me and invalidating it. So if I'm out in public, there are ways that people discriminate against you, just the way that they treat you, or the way that they may handle you. If you're in the public, if you go to a shop, you may not be served. You might not get the best service if you are served. I've had that experience as well. Just to kind of expound on that, I've gone into a shop within recent years and looking for someone to say, hi, hello, how are you? How can I help you? What do you need? And I didn't get that. But someone that came in after me that did not look like me received that good service that I should have been afforded as well. So when you have incidents like this, it strikes at the very core of your self-esteem or your self-worth, or the way you even can see yourself, because you feel like perhaps I don't deserve to be treated properly. I don't deserve to be spoken to with a kind word. I don't deserve certain educational opportunities. I don't deserve to live in a really nice neighborhood, a clean neighborhood, a neighborhood that is not crime ridden. And you're forced into these areas. Even if you have the capital to purchase a really nice home in a particular area, if you're not the majority, a lot of times you might not even get shown that residence, and you'll be funneled into another area where, yeah, there's more people that look like you, but then again, the environment is maybe not as tidy and clean or as pleasant to look at. Maybe the crime rate is high. Maybe the accessibility to shops or supermarkets are not that great. So it's like you're forced to be into this hole of, you belong over there, out of the way, where nothing really good exists, or the minimum possible exist, and you just figure your way out, while we really have the abundance over here. So it could destroy who you are if you don't know how to overcome it within yourself. And that's not easy, because if you're being constantly conditioned on a daily basis, from whether it be media, whether it be at your workplace, whether it be at school, that someone or somehow this system is telling you that you're not good enough, that you don't belong here, that you're not wanted, it is a very destructive force. So when I say in relations to black people or people that look like me, what does racism mean to us? It means, I don't want to say it means everything, but it is everywhere. And it is like, it's like a closed door every time you go someplace or you want something. You have to think about, well, maybe my race is getting in the way. And I don't want to say race is getting in the way, but the way someone else sees me may prevent me from getting a certain job opportunity, or I might not get into a school because of my race, or if I am there, I might be made to feel really uncomfortable. And yeah, it's just it means so much more than if you never experienced it. If that's just not a reality that you have to face, it's just maybe a second thought. If you've heard someone complaining about it, or you kind of know that it's out there and kind of have a gist about it, as opposed to having to live it on a daily basis, where literally you can see the looks in people's eyes change. They it shifts from someone that may have a normal interaction otherwise. The minute that they see you, it's like their whole behavior goes funny. And I've had that happen on so many occasions, and a lot of times I'm asking myself, like, what is it about me that maybe someone else is finding difficult to handle? And I don't normally just say, okay, it's my race, it's because I'm black, you know. But if I can't find any other reason why someone will be mishandling me, or being difficult with me, or just being really, really odd, I, at times, if I cannot figure anything out, I don't know this person, maybe we never had any bad interactions, then I start to think, well, maybe it is that, because I couldn't see anything else that makes any sense. And it's almost like you're designed to not have a normal existence, because the things that come out of racism and being discriminated against, it just runs the gamut on what type of experience you may have that is actually very unpleasant. I mean, you go into shops, and there's times where I've been followed around, and not, why don't you automatically think I might have my own money to spend, that I work hard for it, that I maybe saved, and I deserve to have something good. What do I always fit this description of someone that's gonna steal, that's not gonna do the right thing, that, is looking for a moment to be dishonest or corrupt. And it's interesting, because when we work, a lot of times when black people work in any environment, typically, we're not really paid well. We might be paid to do like 2 and 3 people's jobs. Yeah, and disrespected, of course, goes without saying. But when I talk about financial aspect of it, it's almost like the society is geared towards us not making it. So if you do see someone in a shop that maybe is not even higher end, it doesn't even have to be higher end, but you do see someone in a shop and say they look like me, it's like automatically your mind goes to, oh, she might steal. Like, or let me follow her around because she can't possibly have any money, because it's almost like you are set up in life to fail. Like, no one's supposed to give you a proper opportunity or compensate you properly. So you're not supposed to have any money. So the minute you walk into some place, of course you want to steal, right? Because you're not supposed to be having a good job. You're not supposed to have a nice house. You're not supposed to be in a nice neighborhood, or have nice things and nice clothes or whatnot. You're not supposed to be doing well. So if you do go someplace where it's like, yeah, I've worked hard, or I've saved and I earned this and I deserve it, or I just want to go in and have a look around, like, you're not supposed to be able to do that. Like, it's designed that you're held back. I mean, when you come to a lot of these impoverished neighborhoods, they're usually neighborhoods of color. There's usually black people living there. The schools are poor. The streets are dirty. The parks are, if there is parks, it's unkept. It's not clean. Maybe prone to like maybe drug abuse. People probably have needles and things all over the way. Nobody's caring for it. Your kids go over there. You don't want them playing over there to begin with. Like, it's never a nice environment. So it starts to destroy the very aspect of who you are. Like, it's so important. Like, one difference that I've noticed where, if you're in a neighborhood, listen, I'm from New York and I'm from the Bronx. And, while there's very beautiful places in the Bronx, and a lot of times it's sad to admit, but it's fact. Like, you go places in the Bronx and it could look very hard, and the hood, right? Maybe not that nice, but from the day to day, people get their lives, they live their lives, they get what their needs met, they live their lives, they try to bring up their kids, send them to school, what have you. And then you go to these areas that are very beautiful, but people that look like me are not the majority. it's beautiful, gorgeous. Like, you want to stay. You really want to stay. But they don't look like me over there. So it's things like this that shows how we're being set apart, that we're not as human or as valuable as maybe another group. And particularly speaking, I'm going to say white people, because that's the majority of this country. It's not meant as a bash or just disrespecting, saying it's just facts. That it's easy to diminish someone when they don't live with you, they don't live around you, they don't live like you, they don't get the same education as you, they don't get the same job offers as you, they're not able to maybe even afford just common amenities like you can. So it's easy to say, well, these people are not as good as us. And then when we're the highest rate of incarceration, the highest rate of police brutality, which is another thing, because then, we're not the only minorities in this country, but yet I don't ever see another group. Hispanic are sometimes, yes, I get that, we live amongst each other most of the times, but at the rate at which we're being attacked and killed by the police is absolutely just astounding. You never see any other group being treated like that. Not that I would wish that to be the case, but you never see it. So to the point that racism is just a destructive force and it's targeted. You have the evidence there. You have, case after case after case, name after name after name. I don't even want to sit here and call the names because I'd be here all night. But we know exactly who's being affected, and it's usually black people. I've never heard of white police officers or black police officers targeting white youth, white young men, slamming them to the ground, dragging them up, taking them to jail. Like, you just don't hear it. So you're like, well, is it the race because we just need to be handled a certain way? We need to be dealt with a certain way. We need to be eradicated. That idea that we're subhuman or substandard, it perpetuates itself through every aspect of society. And it almost gives the authority to anyone that does not look like us to mishandle us. I mean, it even happens. Look, I don't want to, speak like I don't know, but I've had people that were discriminating against me and they weren't white. And sometimes I want to ask myself, it's like, is that a cultural thing for them? Or is it this country that has given them the cues to say, you can do that? Even though you're a minority group yourself, you can treat these people like that. That's okay, because we don't really care about them. American or not, we don't care about them because they don't look like us. I'm just really grateful now that we're able to talk about it. We're able to shed light on it. It's not like it ever wasn't there. The country was founded on this, okay? When you're literally crossing an ocean to grab people up, chain them, bring them back, hold them into captivity, beat them, not pay them. They're basically like cattle. Rape them, kill them, no accountability for your actions. It just keeps going. It never ends. And one thing about this time that we're in is like, I'm so grateful to God that we're talking about it, because how do you get rid of a thing if you don't know it's there? You can't. And for so often, if you are affected by racism, it's like you suffer in silence. Because if you have a racist encounter with someone, it's almost hard to prove. It may seem like you're making it up. You probably did something that person didn't like. Well, don't take it to heart. Don't dwell on it. And sometimes you can bring it up and it may seem like, oh, you're just pulling the race card, or it might be something else, but you're just making it seem like it's about your race, when really, in fact, it is that serious. It's just this dirty secret that's been hidden. And sometime it comes out and then all of a sudden it gets packed up again and the tape gets slapped on the box and pushed into a corner. And then it's just there for another generation to open it up and take a look at it and try to tackle it themselves as well. Realizing that it's just way bigger than just them. It's way bigger than their generation. It's been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, you can try to take a chunk out of it, but you almost guaranteed to say you gave it a try, you took your crack at it, and it gets put back into the box, nicely folded and taped back up again and pushed into a corner for another generation. It's like, you just want to find out, like I want to find out, like, when does it really end? You're never gonna stop people from being racist. You're never gonna stop people from hating someone because their hair is different, their eyes are different, their skin color is different, the way they walk is different, their talk is different, where they've grown up, their family. You're never gonna be able to eradicate that, because people are people. You're entitled to like who you want to like and not like who you don't. But when it becomes a problem is this overarching influence of this said thing. Like, everyone does it. It's just automatic. You don't have to think about it. This is our legacy. This is our heritage. These people are to be treated like this. These people are not to be acknowledged. These people are to be rejected. These people are to be harassed and attacked. These people are to be killed and subdued and killed. And if you have a problem, just say, hey, you know how they are, the barbarians and stuff. I was threatened. I feared for my life. And these are responses that you hear police officers say. And I'm thinking, well, if you're so afraid, why are you on the police force? And don't get me wrong, it's not every police officer. And I truly believe more police officers are on the better end of the spectrum than not. And it's not a few bad apples, but it's our culture. It is our culture that dictates how we're seen, generation after generation after generation. It is a culture that says, even if it's automatic, sometimes you're biased and you don't even realize it. You may see someone that comes in a room like me and you start to behave a certain way. You may not want to sit at a table that's close to mine and not even know why. Maybe you do. Maybe you're just like, oh, I just all of a sudden feel uncomfortable that that person's in space. But if someone else that's very similar to me in personality, attitude, mindset, but they look different than me, you automatically feel more comfortable. You automatically want to get closer. Sometimes it's so embedded into our psyches that we can't really stop unless we really analyze our behaviors, and how better else to analyze our behaviors and to put it on display and to call it out. I'm just really happy that we're able to tackle such a intense, serious subject like this, because, when you're not a part of a group that's experienced a certain traumatic activity, it's easy to forget it. It's easy to dismiss it. It doesn't affect me. It's like if I'm gonna draw a close comparison, it's like if someone's sick, if someone's ill with, let's say, cancer, I can feel compassion for that person, but I'm not living with it every day. Glory be to God. I wouldn't ever want to be that kind of sick, and my heart goes out to those people that are. However, that it's like you can feel sad and compassion and empathy for that person, but you're not thinking about it all day, because that pretty much is not your life. You don't have to live it. Now, change it around where it's like, if that is that person, now you're living that way, you take everything into consideration. How you feel when you get up in the morning. Do you have enough energy to even maybe take a shower? What kind of food do you eat? Is something going to make you more sick than the next? If you're going to do exercise, are you well enough to do exercise? You might have a chemotherapy appointment scheduled for that day. These are all things that someone living with that type of illness has to consider on a day-to-day. By the glory and grace of God, now can say, well, I don't have to think about those steps during my day because I'm not suffering in that way. So you can always say, yeah, there's people out there that, yeah, you know, they have cancer, but glory be to God, I can get up every day and not feel like, oh, I can't get up today because of that illness. Or I'm not going to feel okay until I get my meds. Or I can't really do much today that I had planned. I can just only sit and maybe watch some TV or something. Because that's your reality. So it's the same thing when it comes to racism. It's people that you can't put it down. You can't let it go. And it's not something you could ignore. It's every single place you go, everything you do. You'll never get to forget that someone thinks poorly of you. You'll never get to forget that someone deems you're not worthy to be served. You're worthy to have the worst thing said to you. Even if it was unprovoked, like you're not even in an argument. It's like literally somebody could look at you and say something really derogatory, and it's supposed to be okay because like people like you, like you deserve that stuff. Doesn't matter where my heart is, it doesn't matter where my mind is, it doesn't matter how much I may love and respect someone else or other people in general. It just matters that you look different than the general population or the majority of people in this country, and they say that you're bad. So if you're inherently bad, then I guess anyone that looks like me is inherently good. Like you don't have to work on your character or work on your mind and work on how you exhibit empathy or care for someone else. You don't have to work on anything because you just showing up in the world as you says that you're good. You're perfect. You always get things right. You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. You deserve love. You deserve promotion and support because you just do. And anyone that just makes it like by default, so then anyone that doesn't look like you is attributed all the most negative aspects of life because it's just the way it is, man. It's just like that. I didn't create you. This is just how it is. It's a destructive force, but if you don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, lucky you, right? You get to turn your back and just live your life as normal. So what I'm saying is not necessarily to rant, but it is such a heavy, weighty topic. It's so much to divulge. It's just, I know the pain that comes along with that because it's almost like you're not normal anymore. Some people can't even talk to you normally because they don't even want to talk to you because automatically you're not good to talk to. You're not good to be next to. You're not good to consider for anything that's positive. And I mean, can you imagine what your life would be like if you had to think that about yourself every single day or think someone thinks about me like that every single day? I mean, as a little kid in school, I felt discrimination. Of course I did. I remember being one of like maybe 4 or 5 black kids in my class, whether it was first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. I felt it and I saw it, and I remember being treated differently by my teachers. My teachers didn't look like me. In fact, it's so incredibly important to have an education system where you have your educators, teachers that represent you, that look like you. It's important because then they understand what life you are living and what difficulties you might face because they've been there themselves. And it's harder when you have someone that you're in their care but they don't have compassion for you and they don't see you as the same. It just makes it so easy to mistreat you and mishandle you and just forget about you because that's your place in life. So, I mean, I'm really wishing and hoping that this changes, that we're on the cusp of real change. And the analogy that I gave where it's like you just kind of like once the dust settles and then it's back to business as usual. So it's like I'm really hoping that we can have the change that's been needed in this country. I mean, during the civil rights movement, I'm like, it just doesn't seem that different. It just is that people have changed. So I really wanted to talk about that because I know that a lot has been said about it lately. And you know, just trying to give a little bit more, just a little bit more of an idea of what it might be like, in case you don't know what discrimination or racism feels like. And if you do, you know that others share the same pain as you do. And it's just getting to the bottom of it. Like, you know, it's like maybe we'll never get to the bottom of what racism is. But my issue is the fact that it's so sewn into every area. You know, when you don't feel protected by law enforcement, you feel, if anything, you're going to be attacked or killed. I mean, where do we stand in a country like that? What justice can you rely on? And it's as though it's okay. You know, we have an occupant in the White House now that you know that he is all for this, because his promotion, his family's promotion, but their promotion is based on, hey, this is who we are, this is what we look like. I'm not going to say people don't work hard and can't work hard for what wealth that they amass. But a lot of times, if you see that he's propagating his speech and rhetoric is really towards divisiveness and really sowing hate among races, and or standing up for the police no matter what they do, you know that he probably came to where he is right now because it was handed to him. And a lot of times, if it was ill-gotten gains, and part of the reason why it was ill-gotten is because you just happen to be you and look like you and your dad as well, like, you're gonna be for it. You're gonna want it to continue to perpetuate, because that's where you got your elevation from. So I can see him wanting to keep it, wanting people to be divided, wanting hate to breed, because it's as though you can't get anywhere without that. You know your base, and you know who stands for the crap that you spew. So you just keep on going. You just keep on talking. And it's like, what's sad is that there's so many people, more people than we'd like to acknowledge, that align to those type of ideologies that the person in the White House does. It's sad, but you kind of can't be angry because it's coming from such a long, deep history. So anyway, yeah, I mean, racism, it just, like I was saying, it prevents protection by law enforcement. Under the law, if you do commit a crime, usually your sentence is harsher because people don't see you as someone that should be walking freely into the streets. As clearly we can see by incidences where a young black man has gone to the shop for a Skittles or for a cup of tea, and they haven't made it home to their bed that night because someone else deemed that they were a threat. And the people that deemed they were a threat were the threat. But yet they get away scot-free. They get to go home and, well, they get to live their lives pretty much. So, yeah, I know it's pretty heavy. It's pretty deep. And I'm just glad that we're able to talk about it now. If for nothing else, if we have to just pass this along to another generation, at least it's being spoken about in ways that I've never heard before. Like, like outside of like, okay, in the 60s and, I haven't heard it spoken about and shed so much light on ever in my life. So I wish that it would be a change. And, I'm pretty sure people could be like, well, if Trump gets elected again, it's going to get worse. I mean, I'm not afraid of him being elected again. And a lot of people should not be afraid of him being elected again. Well, our country should be what it says it is, despite who's there. And I tell you what, Trump is not the cause of racism. Like, it's been here before he was president. It's It's always been a part of our lives. Rodney King didn't happen under Trump. Trayvon Martin didn't happen under Trump. Racism was always here. So no matter who's in there, it is always going to remain a problem until we start to really draft legislation and that make sure that these avenues of discrimination are eradicated. You have to make it law. And then it also has to become a part of our culture where we're not seen as the enemy simply because of what we look like. I mean, I'm born in America, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people ain't going to see me as American. And if they want to insult me, they're going to tell me to go back to Africa or something when I've never been to Africa. But, you know, if I'm in a heated argument, I can't tell someone, hey, why don't you go back to Scandinavia? Or, hey, why don't you go back to Italy? Why don't you go back to England? You don't hear that. But clearly you hear, hey, why don't you go back to your country and go back to Africa? Yeah, ethnically, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm from there. I can say that. But directly, no, I never had a life there. I've never visited one country there. So the country that I'm from and been born and raised in is basically saying, yeah, we reject you. And why do you reject me? Not based on what I've done, but just simply because I look different. And that's supposed to be okay. You know, we're living in really, really hard times, but dare I say that it's been harder because at least now much more minorities have opportunity, educational opportunities, career opportunities that was not available in the past. So we are living in a better time. I know it seemed really rough with the COVID-19. Many people are dying still. It's a really hard time for our country, but I think it's a time that we are supposed to come, like, have a reckoning with who we truly are and what behaviors or what idea as a country we've been promoting or allowing to fester. Like, we really have to come to grips with who we are and who we want to be. And I wanted to raise a question on, like, whether Trump is really good for our country. And people probably will think that's nuts. But why I say that is because him being him allows us to see so many behaviors that is pervasive, like in other areas of life, in business, in the government, people that align with him. Like, we're able to see these people more. We're able to analyze the behavior. So him being him shouldn't be a threat to who we are. We should be who we are regardless. And if anything, become stronger and more united if we really truly believe that he's terrible for our country. We should stand for that. We should just stand for that. And we should be that. We should, when, you know, the idea of we should be the change that we want to see, it's really true. Like, just because you're being a tyrant doesn't mean that the only way we're going to be better is if you go away. Like, we've had so many issues that we're just really coming to light right now. But it was pre-Donald Trump. So you can go ahead and be hateful. It doesn't mean that maybe you embolden some people a bit more, but it doesn't mean that we're going to change into being you. There might be a lot of people that align with you, but I dare say that they aligned with that kind of rhetoric and speech and idea before Trump was even on the scene. They were already that thing. They were already like that. So he just came on the scene and just kind of like gave him a license to be a little bit more open with it. But it's not like they weren't like that already. So if he does get another 4 years, I don't think we should not be afraid. We should not be afraid to see what more he's going to present, because there will be a lot. But it's through him being him, we're just able, I just really truly believe that we can be a better democracy. And I know it sounds so hypocritical. I know it might sound like I'm not making sense, but it's because he is. Because we see the lies, or we hear the lies, because we see the hatred, because we see the divisiveness. Like, we get to see it. We get to see it. And like I said, if you can't really see something, it's how do you tackle it? We get to see who his allies are in the government, in Congress, in the Senate. Like, we get to see his allies, and you know, if you don't have someone like that that is willing to, it's like you kind of like pulling all the mites out of their little hiding places. But before, it just looks like a beautiful laminated exterior. And now you can really see the rottingness behind in our government when you see people aligned with that kind of hateful divisiveness and disrespectfulness. Well, I don't know if disrespectfulness is a word. But being disrespectful. You can see it now. And you can call it. And you can draft laws and, like I said, legislation that makes it difficult for us to be the country we don't want to be. The country we shouldn't be. You know, a country that is really for everyone that lives here and does good and wants to do well. So I know it's really difficult for me to say that Trump seems to be good for our country, because for those of us that like justice, we're able to see when things are unjust. And we could do something to right the wrong. Like, we shouldn't be afraid of him being there. Now, people may say, okay, well, we just need Biden in. Like, I don't know if that's the solution. I mean, it's the less scary version, right? Like, he seems more presidential. He knows what to say. He doesn't seem to be as divisive as this current person. But at the same time, it's like, it's not just getting rid of the bad, just getting rid of what we don't like. That's how it's going to solve the problem. Because, like I said, in terms of discrimination and racism, that's always been a problem. We have an economic downturn. We've had that before as well, and it wasn't under Trump. So we've had these issues before. It doesn't mean that him being there will make us worse. Not if we don't let it. Okay, we can't give darkness that kind of power to say, well, oh, if he's there, then we're just going to be worse. No, I'm not going to be worse that he's there. I know for a fact I'm not going to be worse. It may maybe in my life it might feel bad, because I know there's a lot of people struggling right now. A lot of people, you know, can't find food, out of work, you know, sick, dying. COVID-19 is still a real threat to our existence. Wildfires. I mean, there's a lot happening, and I know that you know, perhaps I'm in a position where I can say, yeah, I'm all right. But at the same time, as a person, even if you're going through difficulty, as a person, someone else's ill intent shouldn't make you worse as a person. You might have an uncomfortable circumstance if you're not dead, but you might have an uncomfortable circumstance, but as long as you're still alive and thriving and you have another day, it shouldn't make you worse because someone else is bad. You should still know how to choose what's right. So anyway, moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about representation in our society, our culture as well. And my mind goes to Chadwick Boseman, which sadly just recently passed in August. And, you know, the iconic roles that he played, definitely, of course, high on my list is Black Panther. Fell in love with that movie. I became a fan, and I wasn't really before. Like, I would say the only other superhero comic character I started to fall in love with within recent years was Wonder Woman, and that's because that last movie was really, really nice with Gal Gadot. I can't wait to see the next one. So yeah, but other than that, I really didn't care. But definitely Black Panther, like, it really got me interested because I was able to see myself. I was able to see powerful people, beautiful people represented, and they looked similar to me, and I could identify with the background and an ethnicity and maybe even the cultural aspects of it, the clothing. Like, I could identify with that because I can see myself. So it's like representation is so important because you almost can say, not almost, but you can say to yourself, I can do it too. And it's really difficult at times to see yourself in a place doing something when no one similar to you is doing it. Not that you can't be a groundbreaker, but it's really hard to just automatically see yourself as like, yeah, one day I'm going to do this, or one day I'm going to do that, or one day I'm going to be this, one day I'm going to be a doctor or astronaut, or I'm going to have my own business. You know, when you don't really see anyone looking like you almost think that that's not possible. And one example I got to share personally is seeing a black president. You know, when I was a kid in my school, in my class, they had a picture of the current president. And I knew, like I said, I was very aware of race as a child because I knew what it felt like for someone to just not like you or to mistreat you. And you know, it's nothing that you said or did. So I was aware of race. And I remember seeing a picture of one of our presidents at the time. I don't know which picture was up of which president, but I should though. Way, like there was a picture of the president. I remember you know, we get the speech that you can do anything you want to do, you can be anything you want to be. But I already knew in my head, I'm like, that's not true though, because if that was true, you wouldn't only see men being president, and you wouldn't only see white men being president. So I truly believe that I would never ever see a black president. I could have bet every last dime I had. I would never have thought in my lifetime I would have seen a black president. And I know I'm not alone in that. So it was very shocking, but yet exhilarating to see Barack Obama become president. Albeit he's still a man, but it's a breakthrough. It's knocking down at least one of those walls. But I thought as a child, I was like, I know that I'm never going to see somebody that looks similar to me ever, because it's a lie. Like they tell you you can do anything and be anything, but you don't see anyone other than maybe a specific type of person doing a said thing or being in a said place or getting a said life. So thank God it is changing right now. And I know that representation in everything, media, government, education, everything, it's really important to see ourselves, because it just allows us to think higher and not just, okay, this is the only thing I'm going to be able to do, or I'm only going to have to settle for this life or that one. Like I can do so much more because I've seen someone like me do it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap that up. Yeah, I mean, in terms of racism, I know I wanted to cover a few things. I hope I was able to kind of, you know, get through a little bit. I mean, it's so broad. It's so much. It's in so many areas. You know, I'm not a teacher on it. I'm not a historian. I'm just a person that lives her life. And I know the experiences I've had so far, and it's incredibly damaging. And I know that's the intent behind it. I see this younger generation in a movement that I really truly believe that a lot of change is going to come from the younger generation being more conditioned to the idea that we are all the same and making more strides towards it. I'm not going to say if you're older that you cannot join that cause, or you're not going to be for that as well and make a huge impact. That's not what I'm saying, but I just usually feel like when you're conditioned in a certain way for such a period of time, it's hard to break out of that. So when you have the young people, youth coming up, and they can see the world differently now, and that can set the tone for the direction of their lives, so that they are more inclusive, they are more evolved and more progressive in the idea that, yeah, no, we're all here together. I mean, what's such a beautiful thing to see is, you know, in these marches, it's not mainly black people, it's everyone. And that's what it's gonna take, everyone, for this to change. Are all white people racist? Absolutely not. But we live in a system of that whether you're racist or not, you're gonna benefit if you look a certain way, and you're not if you look another type of way. So it's for us to really say, listen, the ones that are on the right side of history and really for justice, to speak out, stand up, do something, make a move in the right direction, with everyone that agrees with you, whatever they look like. It's gonna take a unified force to be better. And that's why it's like it's so important. I want to touch on the topic again. It's like we can't be scared of Donald Trump getting another term. And people might say, what am I for? And I'm for whatever's going to make the most impact and the biggest difference. Not just because it's nice, not just because it sounds great, not just because it's a bit more polished, but the thing that's going to make the biggest impact in our lives, in our country's history, in our country's future. The thing or the person that's going to allow us to truly become the nation we ought to be. And that doesn't always mean that just because it's a little bit better. I mean, some of my biggest changes in myself came from hard times, painful times, confusing times, frustrating times. So it's not because, I said, oh, well, I don't like this. It's hurting me or upsetting me. Get rid of it. And as long as it's nicer and calmer, I like that better. It wasn't going to make me the person that I am. It wasn't going to make me see or grow, see the way that I do or grow into who I am. By it just being nicer, just being more calm, just being more pleasant or more what we like. It usually was the thing that was the most abrasive to my spirit and my mind and my emotions that I seen the most growth. So that's why I wanted to impose the idea of Donald Trump not being the worst thing that can happen to us. If I won't be honest if I said that I wanted Biden to be my president, because I don't think that's the answer, just because he's a more tempered down version. And I'm not going to say tempered down version of Donald Trump. He's nothing like Donald Trump. I get it. But I am for the thing, like I said, we need to be who we are despite what we see or who is there. And while I love Biden and I'm ever so grateful at the historic pick in Senator Kamala Harris, incredibly so, I'm not going to just say, okay, just because they're not like Donald Trump, that's the best choice. I know it sounds like, okay, well, he's tearing up our country, or like he's dividing our country. Dare I say that our country was already divided. He just really, like him being there, brought it more to light. It just brought it more out of the crevices. It just put it on a platform with a spotlight on it. It's always been divisive. I mean, you go into areas and it's just all this type of people or that type of people. You go into schools and they're still separated. It's just, we've been divided. We always have been divided because it's our culture. It is the American way. And the only way to really change it is as it's coming out now. So dare I say, I want to say he's like flushing out all the little dirty knickknacks that we couldn't see before, because now they're allying with him. And it's like, wow, you didn't know that person was like that, or that person would lie to cover him up, or that person would say the same thing like him, or that person would be corrupt as well like him. Like, you just wouldn't have seen it if he kind of wasn't there. So when he said, oh, I'm going there to drain the swamp, it's like the swamp went in and pulled out the dirt with it. So we're able to see it and examine it and say, how do we do better? How do we become better? So I want to say that, it's not him going away that's going to make us better, but I want to say that him being there still, I know as traumatic as it is for our country, so many people have died because of his mishandling of coronavirus, and it is unfortunate. It really, truly is, and I don't dismiss it on any level. I truly have to say that, if somebody says, well, what do you say about that? Like, how could he go on and maybe more people are going to die? I say to that, God is in control, meaning God has got it covered. He's not fake. He's not pretend, or he's not dead or non-existent. God is in control. And if certain things are happening, it's happening under his watch. And many people might say, well, what kind of God is that? It's like, it's his world. He created this world. I don't have all the answers, but I do trust God. I do have faith in the Lord. And whichever direction we go in, I do truly believe that America is changing and changing for the better. I know what it may sound like is that, oh, well, why would God make so many people? I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I know, like I said, I trust God, and whatever is happening is not a surprise to him. So with that, you may believe, you may not believe, but I'm just coming from my own perspective with it. Love yourself and love others.